Modern Art Tales by AI Artisan. Modern Art Tale. Once upon a time, in the early 1900s, the world of art was going through a great transformation. For centuries, artists had been following the same old rules, creating paintings that looked like photographs or idealized versions of reality. But then, something magical happened. A group of artists, inspired by the post-impressionist painters, decided to break free from tradition and explore new ways of creating art. They called themselves the Fauve, or wild beasts, and they painted with bold, bright colors and loose, expressive brushstrokes. Their paintings were like nothing the world had ever seen before, and people were both shocked and thrilled by their vibrant, energetic style. But the Fauve were just the beginning. Soon, other artists were inspired to break free from tradition as well. In 1907, Pablo Picasso and Georges Braque created a new style called Cubism. They broke down objects into geometric shapes and forms, creating paintings that were abstract and experimental. As the years went on, more and more artists joined the modern art movement, each bringing their own unique style and vision to the table. Some, like the Expressionists, focused on the emotional and psychological aspects of art, creating paintings that were intense and distorted. Others, like the Dadaists, rejected traditional values and conventions, creating art that was absurd and nonsensical. But perhaps the most magical movement of all was Surrealism. Led by artists like Salvador Dali and René Magritte, Surrealism explored the world of dreams and the subconscious, creating paintings that were mysterious and otherworldly. As time went on, the world of modern art continued to evolve. Artists like Jackson Pollock and Willem de Kooning created a new style called Abstract Expressionism, which emphasized the act of painting itself. Other artists, like Andy Warhol and Roy Lichtenstein, brought popular culture and everyday objects into art, creating a movement called pop art. Finally, in the 1960s, a new movement emerged called minimalism. Artists like Donald Judd and Dan Flavin created works of art that were simple and pared down, using basic shapes and colors to create stunning visual effects. And so, the story of modern art came to an end. But its legacy lives on, inspiring artists all over the world to break free from tradition and create something new and magical.
Futuristic story of modern art. In the future, the world of art underwent a transformation unlike any other. As technology advanced, so did the creative capabilities of artists. They no longer needed canvas and paint to create their works of art, but instead utilized holographic and virtual reality technologies to bring their visions to life. The first movement of the new era was called Digital Expressionism. Artists utilized computer programs and algorithms to create stunningly intricate and detailed works of art, with colors and shapes that seemed to dance and shimmer before the viewer's eyes. But as technology continued to evolve, so did the world of art. The next movement was called neural art, where artists used artificial intelligence to generate their works. The machines analyzed patterns in nature and human behavior, and used these insights to create art that seemed to be alive, pulsing with energy and vitality. In the decades that followed, new movements emerged at an ever-increasing pace. Virtual surrealism allowed artists to create immersive dreamscapes that engulfed the viewer's senses, while quantum minimalism utilized principles of quantum physics to create works that were both simple and complex, with layers of meaning that seemed to shift and change depending on the viewer's perspective. As the world of art continued to expand, new technologies emerged that allowed artists to merge the physical and digital worlds. Augmented reality art allowed viewers to experience works of art in a new and immersive way, overlaying digital elements onto the real world. Mixed reality art took this even further, creating fully interactive works of art that responded to the viewer's movements and actions. But amidst all this innovation and progress, some artists began to question the role of technology in art. They longed for a return to the tactile and physical nature of traditional art forms, and thus a new movement was born: analog renaissance. Artists utilized materials such as wood, stone, and metal to create works that were both timeless and contemporary, paying homage to the traditions of the past while embracing the possibilities of the future. And so, the world of art in the future was a constantly evolving and ever-changing landscape, with each new movement and technology pushing the boundaries of creativity and imagination. From digital expressionism to analog renaissance and beyond, the legacy of modern art lived on, inspiring new generations of artists to explore the unknown and create art that was truly beyond our wildest dreams.
Modern art SF story. In the year 2100, the world of art had undergone a transformation that was nothing short of remarkable. Artists had long since abandoned the traditional forms of art, and had embraced a new era of artistic expression that was fueled by technology and innovation. It all began in the early 20th century, when a group of artists rebelled against the traditional styles and techniques of the past. They began to experiment with new forms of abstraction and expression, challenging the very foundations of art itself. As the decades passed, artists continued to push the boundaries of creativity, and new movements emerged that were even more daring and avant-garde. Surrealism explored the world of dreams and the subconscious, while abstract expressionism embraced the spontaneous and the intuitive. But it was the emergence of digital art that truly transformed the world of art. With the advent of new technologies, artists could create art that was more immersive, more engaging, and more interactive than ever before. In the year 2050, a new movement emerged that would change the world of art forever. The Virtualists were a group of artists who used virtual reality technology to create art that was truly immersive and transformative.
Modern art horror story. The history of modern art is not all sunshine and rainbows. It's a tale of darkness and horror, of artists who dared to delve too deep into the unknown and paid a terrible price for their curiosity. In the early 20th century, a group of artists known as the Dark Masters emerged. They rejected the traditional notions of beauty and aesthetics, instead embracing the macabre and the grotesque. Their paintings and sculptures were filled with images of death and decay, of twisted and deformed bodies. As the years passed, the Dark Masters became even more extreme in their art. They began to incorporate real human bones and flesh into their sculptures, and rumors spread of secret rituals and sacrifices that took place in their studios. But it wasn't just the Dark Masters who were flirting with darkness. As the 20th century progressed, more and more artists began to experiment with the occult and the supernatural, using their art as a means of exploring the unknown. Some of them went too far. There were stories of artists who had been possessed by demons or cursed by ancient gods, their minds twisted and tormented by dark forces beyond their control. Others simply disappeared, their bodies never found, their art left behind as a warning to future generations. Even today, the legacy of these artists lives on, their works haunting galleries and museums around the world. Some say that the spirits of the Dark Masters still linger in their creations, waiting to possess the unwary and the curious. Others warn that there are secrets hidden within these works, secrets that should never be uncovered. So if you find yourself drawn to the art of the modern era, be careful. You never know what horrors may lurk within the canvases and sculptures, waiting to claim your soul.
Modern art comedy. Ladies and gentlemen, gather round, for I have a tale to tell, a tale of art, of creativity, and of the wild and wacky world of modern art. It all started way back in the early 20th century, when artists began to experiment with new styles and techniques. Cubism, Futurism, Surrealism, each movement was more outlandish and bizarre than the last. The art world became a veritable circus, with artists juggling paintbrushes, throwing sculptures like frisbees, and performing acrobatic feats of creativity that left audiences gasping in awe and laughter. One artist, Salvador Dali, was particularly famous for his antics. He once rode an elephant through the streets of Paris, wearing a diving suit and a bowler hat, while carrying a baguette in one hand and a live lobster in the other. Another artist, Marcel Duchamp, caused a stir when he entered a urinal into an art exhibition, claiming that it was a work of art. Critics were left scratching their heads, wondering if Duchamp was a genius or just taking the piss. As the years went on, the art world became even more absurd. Performance art became all the rage, with artists doing everything from eating raw meat to sitting silently in a chair for hours on end. And then there was the pop art movement, which celebrated the mundane and the everyday. Artists created sculptures of soup cans, painted portraits of celebrities, and even made art out of bubblegum wrappers and comic books. Through it all, the art world remained a place of wonder, amusement, and pure hilarity. Critics and curators may have scratched their heads, wondering what it all meant, but audiences loved it. They laughed, they cried, and they left the galleries feeling inspired and uplifted. And so, my friends, let us raise a glass to the artists who dared to be silly, who dared to be strange, and who dared to make us laugh. For in the wild and wacky world of modern art, there is always room for a good joke and a hearty chuckle.
Modern art love story. Once upon a time, in the early 20th century, the art world was a place of passion and romance. It was a world where artists poured their hearts onto canvas, and where love and beauty were celebrated in all their forms. One such artist was Pablo Picasso, whose paintings of his lover, Dora Maar, captured her beauty and grace in ways that left viewers breathless. His portraits of her were filled with vibrant colors and sweeping lines, reflecting the passion and intensity of their love. But Picasso was not the only artist to fall in love with his muse. Marc Chagall, too, found inspiration in his wife, Bella, painting her with a tenderness and affection that radiated from the canvas. And then there was Frida Kahlo, whose self-portraits depicted her pain and suffering, but also her fierce love for her husband, Diego Rivera. In her paintings, she captured the depth of their bond, showing the world what it truly meant to love and be loved. As the years passed, the art world continued to be a place of love and romance. The abstract expressionists expressed their emotions through bold brushstrokes and dramatic splashes of color, while the pop artists celebrated the joys of everyday life and the beauty of ordinary objects. And even as new movements emerged and old ones faded away, the love stories of the artists remained a constant, a thread that ran through the history of modern art like a ribbon of passion. For in the world of modern art, love was not just a feeling, but a force that inspired and guided the artists, a flame that burned bright and true, illuminating the canvas and the hearts of all who beheld it.
Modern art sad story. In the turbulent world of modern art, there lived two artists whose lives were intertwined by fate, both blessed and cursed with their own brilliance. Vincent van Gogh, the Dutch post-impressionist, and Amedeo Modigliani, the Italian expressionist, were their names, and their stories were as tragic as they were beautiful. Vincent had always been a misunderstood soul. He painted with a fervor that came from deep within his troubled heart. His vibrant, swirling colors danced across his canvases, capturing the essence of his inner turmoil. Yet, the world could not fathom the depths of his brilliance, and his works often languished in obscurity. One fateful night, Vincent found himself in a dimly lit café in Paris, where he met Amedeo Modigliani, a fellow artist known for his captivating portraits. Modigliani was a man of enigmatic charm and a taste for the bohemian life. They shared their dreams, their fears, and their love for art over glasses of absinthe. As their friendship blossomed, they found solace in each other's company, for they were both outsiders in a world that struggled to understand their vision. They painted side by side, each inspiring the other to reach new heights in their art. Modigliani's graceful portraits complemented Vincent's bold landscapes, and together, they created a symphony of emotions on canvas. But the shadows of darkness never truly left Vincent. His inner demons haunted him relentlessly, pushing him to the brink of madness. He struggled with bouts of despair and hopelessness, and his art became a reflection of his tortured soul. Despite Modigliani's attempts to console his friend, Vincent's anguish was too deep to quell. One fateful night, as Vincent stood alone in his studio, he made a choice that would forever change the course of their intertwined lives. He painted his final masterpiece, Starry Night, pouring all his anguish and longing into the swirling night sky. Then, he turned his pain inward, ending his own life. Modigliani was devastated by Vincent's tragic end. He mourned the loss of his friend, and his own art took on a melancholic tone. He channeled his grief into his work, painting portraits that captured the sorrow and emptiness he felt inside. But Modigliani's life too was marred by tragedy. His reckless lifestyle and self-destructive habits took a toll on his health, and he succumbed to tuberculosis at a young age, leaving behind a legacy of haunting portraits and a love for an artist who had shared his passion and his pain. And so, the world of modern art mourned the loss of two brilliant souls, whose lives were marked by their unwavering dedication to their craft and their shared burden of sorrow. Vincent van Gogh and Amedeo Modigliani, forever remembered as artists who painted not just with colors but with the raw emotions of their tormented hearts.
Anti-modern story. In a small village nestled in the countryside, there lived a group of traditional artists who cherished the old ways of painting and sculpture. They saw themselves as guardians of the beauty and elegance that had been passed down through the ages, and they scoffed at the new, strange art that was emerging in the cities. They called themselves the anti-modernists, and they prided themselves on their ability to capture the essence of nature in their works. They painted landscapes with delicate brushstrokes, sculpted figures with painstaking attention to detail, and celebrated the natural world in every way they could. But as the years went by, the anti-modernists found themselves increasingly at odds with the changing world. New forms of art were emerging, strange and unsettling works that defied all conventions and challenged everything the anti-modernists held dear. They watched with horror as the cities became filled with bizarre sculptures and abstract paintings, works that seemed to have no rhyme or reason. They saw their own works dismissed as outdated and irrelevant, and they became increasingly bitter and resentful. One day, a group of young artists from the city came to visit the village. They were strange and wild, with wild hair and bold clothing, and the anti-modernists could barely hide their disdain. But then, something strange happened. As the young artists began to talk about their art, the anti-modernists found themselves drawn in. They heard about the freedom of expression, the limitless possibilities of creation, and the ability to challenge convention and create something truly new. At first, the anti-modernists resisted the new ideas, clinging stubbornly to their traditional ways. But as they listened more and more, they began to see the beauty in the strange, unsettling works that were emerging in the cities. Slowly but surely, they began to experiment with new forms of art, pushing the boundaries of their own creations and exploring new ways to express themselves. And as they did, they discovered a new sense of freedom and joy in their art, a liberation from the strict conventions of the past. And in the end, the anti-modernists realized that there was no need to fear the new, no need to cling to tradition at the expense of progress. They learned that art was a journey, a never-ending exploration of the possibilities of creation, and that there was beauty to be found in every form, no matter how strange or unconventional.